let's dive into the Nuggets Clippers series. So I would have loved to have Law on immediately after this series because in my opinion, it was a top 2 or 3 series of the entire playoffs this year. Went 7 games, obviously, but I just thought it was really rich in like the texture that had like very different beats throughout those 7 games. Like no 2 games really looked the same. But I think we have to start our discussion with game 4 because it feels like and has been discussed as a really big pivot point in that series, right?
Yeah.
Heading into game 4, the Clippers had a 2-1 series lead, winning game 3 in blowout fashion. We didn't know how Denver was going to respond. What was the expectation for how the Clippers would come out in game 4 with that opportunity to go up 3-1 at home?
Man, right after they blew the Nuggets out in game 3, Tyronn Lue got to the podium and stressed how that team needed to validate the performance that they put forth in game 3, because that was the first playoff game at Intuit Dome. Everyone knew that the energy was going to be exquisite. Like they destroyed the Nuggets. It seemed like they broke their spirit that night, but you would only say that if you never watched the Clippers in the playoffs before. Like, imagine getting comfortable with anything involving the LA Clippers in a postseason setting. They've never made a series easy for themselves, no matter who the coach is. So even if you remove the Clippers part of that narrative, the Nuggets weren't in a good place. Like, remember, this is the same team that had a different head coach when that month of April started. No one had ever done that in the 21st century, especially on purpose.
And we honestly had no idea what it was going to look like when they tried to respond from the first loss after all of that turmoil that led to the firing. So, but continue on, Law.
Afternoon start, the game is already just messy. You had Norman Powell get into it, little dust up or whatever. People thought Aaron Gordon was supposed to be ejected. So like the game, clearly it was like Denver is going to just, they're going to fight. There's going to be something about this game that is different than game 3. To your point, none of these games were like any of the other games over the course of a 7-game series. The closest might have been 5 and 7.
5 and 7, yeah.
But we're not there yet. We're just at game 4. So even at halftime, I'm like, this isn't great. Like the Clippers clearly beat the crap out the Nuggets in the previous game, but this is a dogfight. This is a slog. All the easy stuff the Clippers were getting in game 3, they are not getting in game 4. It's close. And Nikola Jokic dragged his dudes out that halftime locker room, and he destroyed the Clippers. It was a tour de force of dominance in that third quarter.
That third quarter is one of the best quarters I've ever seen Jokic play, playoffs, regular season, whatever.
Yeah, he made more baskets by himself than the entire Clippers team in that third quarter. But there was a catch, Grace, and you know what the catch was. They absolutely ran those minutes up. They didn't have Russell Westbrook at all, okay?
That's right, because Russ had gotten injured in the middle of the blowout in game 3.
Exactly. So he's in street clothes. The team is kind of splintered because there was some kind of blow up, in between game 3 and 4. So you never know which way a team is going to go when there's some infighting going on, where there's some trust issues or whatever. And so when you already have a thin bench, so there wasn't a lot of reliable players for David Adelman to go to. Even the guys starting, we know, and we might get to this later on in this show, but there are even guys who are starting who you're like, are we sure that you are going to be reliable in this high stakes setting? Anyway, David Adelman ran those minutes of those guys up in the third quarter. Nikola did what he did. They lead by 20. They wind up leading by
22.
They wound up leading by 22 early in the fourth quarter. But man, there was just no trust in the bench. And that is when I was like, I'm not going to write this game off for the Clippers just yet, because those minutes, those legs are going to be cooked. And it's just a determination of what can the Clippers do to just see if the Nuggets can hang on. Because if anybody can just, play a bunch of guys and run a lead up and not make any subs whatsoever, you do it. But the reason you don't is because those same guys are going to need a break at some point. We saw that in the Lakers Timberwolves series the same weekend. So I was like, let me see how this goes, Grace. Let me see how this goes. And that's where you had the comeback. And I've seen so many Clippers comebacks. The Nuggets have seen Clippers comebacks. Not only were those tired legs, not only were they on the road, but again, this turnaround, right? Turnaround from game 3 and game 4. You play all those guys, and Nikola, especially. Nikola's a big dude. I don't care that he's the best in the game. He's a human being, even as superhuman as he is. And that's what allowed the Clippers to not just cut that lead down, but use all that momentum to even, erase the lead completely late in that fourth quarter, game 4.
What point in the comeback did you really feel like, okay, LA can actually win this game? It's not going to be one of those fake comebacks. I was going to say it was Bogey's putback over Jokic, which was with a minute left, right? Because at this point, it's still okay, Denver's still up. They need to stop playing around and whatever. They're only up what is it, a point at this point? So Kawhi misses the shot. Jokic gets the rebound. Bogey runs in and rips it from him and hits a tough reverse layup to give the Clippers their, first lead in the game since maybe the first quarter?
Yeah.
And I was like, are they really going to steal this game? Because my eyes rolled all the way back in my head at this moment.
For me, it was before that.
Okay.
Because there was a good timeout called after Kawhi. He just saw Jamal Murray prone, back turned to the basket, and Kawhi just went in there like a spear fisherman and got himself a pick 6 dunk, basically, right? That forced a timeout, and the Nuggets actually increased their lead after that timeout. So under 4 minutes to go, and Jamal hit some tough shots. He hit a shot out of that timeout, and then he hit a 3. But then, the Clippers just played fast. They had a fast lineup out there. That's why Bogey was out there. Bogey had a really tough series, but he played extremely well, just fitting in as a threat, because at that point they were like, we're not stopping him with Derrick Jones Jr. We're not stopping him with Chris Dunn. They had to have something else, just a threat to open the game up for those other guys, right? And so when the Clippers gave up that 3 to Jamal, they put together multiple stops, and that included another timeout that had been called. That timeout under, I think, 3 minutes to go. That one didn't work. And they just I thought the Clippers were just going to zoom by them. I thought they were not even going to let the Nuggets have an opportunity to tie or save the game. And it was crazy that Bogey was the one with the putback, because Bogey's not a big rebounder like that. But that's the thing with having Bogdanović out there. It was like, he has played in these big games. He's Nikola's Serbian teammate. They've played on the world stage in the craziest atmospheres. That guy's going to compete even if he's not playing as well. There's a poise that comes with that.
Right.
And that's why he was out there. When you have to make a big comeback like that, you need some luck. You need to catch some lightning in the bottle. You need a spark. And sometimes it's lineups that are unconventional. But part of the relaxation came in the fact that they were tired. Not just tired because they played a lot of minutes, but it takes maximum effort to build a lead like that. Again, look at how Nikola got his buckets in that third quarter. He went hard. He was decisive. He was not hey, I'm Nikola Jokic, I can get 10 dimes. It was I'm Nikola Jokic, you aren't stopping me. In a series that he probably faced the greatest resistance as a scorer since he became an MVP caliber player, right?
Yeah.
He was so good in that third quarter, but that tank is finite. I don't care who it is. It could be Michael Jordan out there. You know what I'm saying? The tank is finite, and the Clippers took advantage of that. It's just that the Clippers needed that game to be about a minute shorter.
Yeah. Jokic has to tie it up with this tough sombor shuffle. This one honestly surprised me because, like you said, this is the greatest resistance that Jokic has faced as a scorer, at least in terms of like somebody who's getting one-on-one coverage. Because oftentimes the way that you give him resistance as a scorer is by doubling and triple teaming him, like the Thunder did in the very subsequent series. But I think Zoo, in terms of one-on-one defense, has probably done the best of any singular defender that Jokic has faced. But he has to go to his patented sombor shuffle after like really like getting some ground on Zoo, but he's not getting to the spot that he wants. Has to go to this tough turnaround, makes it, and I'm like, oh my God. And they tie it up. Okay. So let's go to the last play of this game then. When Jokic's 30-footer goes up, he has to go to a turnaround, so they make they make Jamal's catch pretty far. He gives the ball to Jokic. Jokic tries to ISO Zoo, and then Kawhi comes to late blitz. Jokic completely airmails that, and that delivery gets right to Aaron Gordon.
Yeah.
For maybe the best putback dunk ever. And what was your reaction when Jokic's shot went up?
When it went
from
up,
where you were sitting?
Man, first of all, I'm up here taking the damn thing like my thing's going to go viral or something, right? Even though thousands of other people are doing the same damn thing, like, and neither one of us had the Hawkeye camera, which is what mattered, right? And so this, when it goes up, it's like, I've seen Jokic make it. I've seen him miss it. Like, yeah. I was poised because there are things that I had seen before. What I had not seen before is somebody put the damn thing back and barely beat the buzzer. And of course, there have been Clipper buzzer beaters or near buzzer beaters.
Like, what were you? What in the moment you had to, like, gun to your head? You got to make a call, good or not.
I was preparing for it to be good. I mean, okay. I just was like, it's not the Clippers. It's just the Clippers.
It's the Clippers.
I thought they would lose game 4. That miss was so imperfect that it gave Aaron Gordon an opportunity to make sure that the Clippers remember it forever, And I just was like, I wasn't. I thought it was close. And they found the shot that determined that it was definitively good. This was a true buzzer beater. This one was a walk-off. And you saw Aaron put that damn thing in there and tried to find the visitor's locker room and into a dome immediately and take as many of his teammates with him as he could. And so I'm looking at that and
the
I'm like,
the look of expectation on his face also there when he's like he's watching the replay to see if it's good is like, I don't think I've seen something like that before.
Oh, it killed the moment because like you have this suspense now. And it's the funniest thing now that there's so many replays and so many triggers for replays. You have these announcers who go from calling a basketball game to immediately going into a different level of broadcasting. We keep unofficial stats on how right you were about the replay. So go ahead and put your record on the line. And that's what this was. The Clippers wanted anything too late. Offensive basket interference. And I'm like, oh, there's a possibility that this could go into overtime. Again, I've seen the Clippers lose so many heartbreaking games that for me, it was just a matter of how can I properly contextualize things that have happened in the past that have nothing to do with these current players? And how can I drive home the point that this is something that these current players and especially the current head coach who made the lineup decision was never going to be able to live down no matter what happens.
But why don't you elaborate on that a little bit? What the rebounding sort of picture looked like really for both teams throughout this series?
Yeah, well, specifically to that lineup, coaches don't always change lineups when it's a situation like that. And over time, we needed to get stops in the form of missed shots, turnovers, and defensive rebounds and not fouling. And they did that for the most part. So you're not thinking we're going to get Ben Simmons off the exercise bike to come in for this last possession. Also, it's a misnomer to say that if you need a rebound, there was anybody on that bench you trust. Like those dudes weren't good rebounders last season. And that's what this series was about. That's the irony about this. It's like, in a way, some of your best rebounders were out there, and it was just a matter of the ball bouncing a certain way and executing. Zoo and Kawhi executed, and there wasn't a whole lot Bogey could do, But James Harden, 35 years old and jumping with Aaron freaking Gordon, is not a plan anytime. Like, get a body on him. That sequence is different. Norman Powell, same thing. He's just kind of staring there. Get a body on somebody, and maybe it's different. If that ball hits the rim, it's just like it hits the rim, and it's probably going to overtime. Like, it's one of those things, though, that drives your decision making for the rest of the series. And when you lose a series like that, it drives your decision making when it comes to team building. And this was the most drastic team building as far as rotation players I've seen from the Clippers in at least 5 years. You got annihilated by Aaron Gordon, which you can't just say, oh, that's just because of how the series went. No, Aaron Gordon ever since he left Orlando, Florida, has looked forward to seeing the LA Clippers, because the LA Clippers for years have built their rosters with a complete absence of what a power forward is. They've always said, we have a guard, a play starter, whatever. We have a big, and we have 3 wings. And the only guy who you look at from a raw stat standpoint and say they're a top rebounder is Ivica Zubac. He was outstanding. He was an all-defensive guy for the first time in his career for a reason. I voted for him as Defense Player of the Year because I'm like, they're a top 5 defense, basically because they weren't going to be a team that you could do anything with in the paint. They prioritize those things. And the only guy that can make that work, the one indispensable defender on that team, was Ivica Zubac. And you notice when Ivica Zubac wasn't in the game, the Clippers, they rebounded like the Toronto Raptors. Newsflash, the Toronto Raptors haven't been a good rebounding team since maybe Kawhi was there, okay? But when Ivica Zubac is in the game, they were outstanding. Well, here's why the Denver Nuggets present a really challenging quandary for even that version of the Clippers, because of Nikola Jokic. Because when Nikola Jokic is on the floor, you need Ivica Zubac to deal with him. But it's not just that Nikola Jokic is a good shooter. Nikola Jokic is a guy who touches the ball more than almost anybody in the league. I'm not talking about just centers, Grace. I'm talking about even the point guards, even the guys. Anybody. And if that guy's got the ball, that means he's running inverted pick and rolls. He's bringing the ball up. He's pushing it in transition. You need to be accountable for him, because even when he passes it, he might get a wedge and then he's going to get the ball again. And that 280-pound dude on a good day and a diet is going to the basket with momentum. That requires Ivica Zubac's attention. And that means that Ivica Zubac is probably at the elbow or probably beyond the 3-point line. And that leaves those big dudes on the Nuggets crashing from the corners or the dunker spot or wherever, even with the Nuggets being the best team in the league at putting the ball in the basket. That is unique, because if Ivica Zubac is away from the basket, someone's got to deal with Aaron Gordon. And you know what? Someone else has to deal with Michael Porter Jr., who is 6'10" and grabs damn near 2 offensive rebounds per game. That's a unique challenge. If the Clippers played the Nuggets for 82 games in the regular season, guess what, Grace? They're not the best defensive rebounding team in the league anymore. And you got to see that play out over a 7-game series.
Yeah, no, I think it's a really good point. And you mentioned it a little bit, but Jokic is, or at least this last season, was one of the best shooters in the NBA. That's why Zubac was guarding him all the way out at the perimeter on that final play. That's why Kawhi goes to soft double him as a secondary contest on a 30-foot turnaround fadeaway, leaving nobody in the paint who can even pretend to deal with Aaron Gordon on that final possession. And just to put some numbers to it, like you said, the Clippers, they had the best defensive rebounding percentage in the league. 75% in non-garbage time. This is from cleaning the glass. Down to 67.5% in the playoffs. For context, the 2024 Oklahoma City Thunder, which is the team that everyone was like, this team is too small. They're going to struggle with, they don't rebound well enough to be a good enough playoff defense, all of that stuff. I personally think that their offense was their issue, even in that playoff run. But, the glass was still an issue for that team. That team had a 69% defensive rebounding rate. And so the Clippers were very outmatched on the glass for all of the reasons that you said when it comes to the size. But I also think that the perimeter, or at least the relative perimeter athleticism, really gave them trouble. You talked about Aaron Gordon, you talked about Michael Porter Jr. as part of that front line. I think Russ and Christian Brown, especially, were feasting on the offensive glass. Right. And so what do you think about that component separate from the frontline size issue with the Clippers last year as a contributor to their issues on the defensive glass?
Well, that is why, honestly, Norman Powell's not on the team anymore. And also why so much of the Clippers offseason from a backcourt standpoint was to more or less minimize how much you're relying on someone like Chris Dunn, a guy who was a primary starter, a revelation, not just into himself and to the Clippers, but like wound up replacing Terrence Mann, a guy that they paid. And right before the season started, Chris Dunn, as a point of attack guy, along with Derrick Jones Jr., transformed the Clippers defense from a also ran unit to a top 3 defense in the entire NBA. But against the Nuggets, things change. Like, you got to be able to defend those guys. And the best defense that the Nuggets had was straight up ignoring guys and giving them half of the floor to deal with so that they could overplay the guys who had the ball in their hands the most. And that was what made it difficult. Like, Nikola Jokic was basically taunting the Clippers and saying, yeah, Nico Batum's probably going to start game 7. Like, that's what it came down to. And Nico was really good, but Nico was a non-threat inside the 3-point line offensively and defensively. Over time, Nico's not the most physical defender. So now everything the Clippers have done this offseason, it's like you still have Dunn, you still have Derrick Jones Jr., but now you have Chris Paul, so you can have another guy who can handle the basketball and not play him too much. You have Bradley Beal, and the key with Bradley Beal is you started Chris Dunn partly because of his defense, but also partly so that James Harden had someone else he could give the ball to bring the damn thing up. And Norm couldn't be trusted to do that consistently. Denver was able to take advantage of the fact that the Clippers straight ran out of reliable players to execute offensively. And also, what Chris really struggled with is, and this became clear in game 5, Grace, this was the biggest difference between game 5 and game 7. Jamal Murray absolutely lit these dudes up in game 5.
Yeah.
He had his, I'm a playoff riser game in game 5. Yeah. There was, at that point, you can't justify starting Chris anymore. At that point, you're like, we got to do something different.
I want to know how you think the Clippers match up with Denver now. Do you even attribute last year, first of all, to a matchup issue outside of just the Aaron Gordon of it all? Aaron Gordon versus no other like true power forward of it all. And 2, if you think so, because you think Brook Lopez will just be playing more opposite Zubac, or because you might see a lot of like super, like maybe even triple big lineups where you've got like Kawhi at shooting guard and Brook Lopez playing the 4 with Zubac on the floor. I know we're talking about Ty Lue here, but you know him better than anybody on this show anyway. So what do you think about that particular matchup and how the size question comes into it?
In a playoff series, the Clippers are a lot better to deal with the Nuggets today than they were in April and May. And that's not to say, look, the Nuggets, obviously, they made the moves that they made. The biggest one, getting Cameron Johnson on their team. Cameron Johnson, I think, should be an intriguing and very exciting fit for the Denver Nuggets, in part because he's not going to take things off the table that Michael Porter Jr. takes off the table, including but not limited to saying dumb stuff. Like, you don't got to police that anymore. Like, we're not going to go down that rabbit hole. Yeah. I don't think you imagine you want to. I've had, not criticisms, just observations about the other side to acquiring Cam and losing Michael Porter Jr. in that, like, I've watched a lot of Cameron Johnson. I love his game. And I do like his fit with Denver, but he makes Denver less physically imposing than Michael Porter Jr. did. In a variety of ways. And in a matchup with the Clippers had to really be concerned with the fact that you had a skyscraper shooting threes and crashing and cutting and finishing, and you don't you have a more conventional sized player in Cameron Johnson. You're not as concerned with those things with a Cameron Johnson. That might be an issue for other teams, but for the Clippers, they'll welcome not having to deal with a guy who doesn't crash as aggressively or effectively as Michael did. With Cameron Johnson, there's the durability thing that I've brought up before. Like, Cam has missed a ton of games over the past few years. Michael Porter Jr. has a big pre-existing condition, but whatever Denver's medical staff did to manage that and have him playing was really critical, because a team as thin as the Denver Nuggets didn't have to worry about Michael Porter Jr. missing a ton of games over the last few years. That's going to be something where no one's going to talk about, but if something happens to Cameron Johnson, you're going to hear a bunch of thoughts and prayers and whatnot. Like Tim Hardaway Jr. now.
We in Nuggets world are absolutely talking about that.
Yeah, so like that's the thing where it's like the Nuggets ceiling is very exciting, but I think the Clippers, looking at the fact that they basically got pulverized in critical categories in this series, they were very aggressive at addressing them, and they addressed them about as well as you could possibly ask them to. The Nuggets actually visit the Clippers before the regular season starts, but they also will see the Clippers on November 12th. Now, people who have covered the Clippers for a while know that Tyronn Lue likes to give himself a 10-game sample size when he comes out of training camp with a set group of starters and an expanded rotation. Well, guess where the Nuggets are in the regular season schedule? They are game 11. So I'm fascinated to see both what Tyronn Lue decides coming out to start the regular season. I got my suggestions. I feel like Derrick Jones Jr. needs to start because he is the best combination of shooting, athleticism, and point of attack defense to go with Kawhi, James, Zoo, and Bradley Beal, the four guys who I know will start. Or if he goes with John Collins, who I know that James Harden and Kawhi Leonard would be happy to start with John Collins. I know Zoo wouldn't mind, but I feel like that puts Bradley Beal as your point of attack defender. And it also gives you so many mouths to feed offensively. So I'm interested to see what that decision winds up being to start the year. The Clippers should be considering the Nuggets games the most important games on their, to start before you kind of get an identity of the league, right? Like 20 games in, we're going to reshuffle the deck. But like that November game is going to be like the biggest game on the Clippers schedule as far as I'm concerned. That's why the regular season matters. The regular season matters because you get these data points over the course of 82 games, because even the bad teams do something really well. Even the bad teams have guys like John Collins or Cameron Johnson who you're looking at over the course of a year and you're like, that guy could help us. I'm very excited for the season overall, and I'm actually very excited to see both how the Clippers and Nuggets react to one another in a regular season setting, and God forbid those teams play in the playoffs.
Absolutely. Well, everybody go follow Law online on Twitter. Check out his YouTube channel as well. Thanks again for being on the show.
All right. Well, thank you, Grace. Thank you, Will. Appreciate y'all.
Of course. If you made it this far, we really appreciate you guys. If you do like our content, please remember to click the like button, hit the subscribe button, as well as hit the notification bell. And always remember that winning is fun and losing sucks.